Have you ever come across a financial idea that sounds so simple, so perfect, so easy, that you genuinely start to wonder, why aren't they just doing this? Well, when it comes to Aptera and the constant suggestions about prepaid deposits, bigger down payments, or funding production through reservation holders, those ideas pop up all the time. And on the surface, they feel reasonable. But once you dig even a little deeper, you realize something important. The logic completely collapses. Not because the idea is bad, but because the reality behind building a car company is far more unforgiving than most people expect. Today, let's break this down clearly, calmly, and thoroughly. Because understanding why bigger deposits won't save Aptera tells us something much larger about how the EV industry works, what history has already proven, and why shortcuts can sometimes be catastrophic. A lot of people have suggested a version of the same plan. Why don't reservation holders just pay more upfront? Why not increase the deposit from $100 to something serious? Everyone could put in $1,500 and fund the company instantly. Customers could prepay and get a guarantee. If the car never arrives, the money gets refunded. On paper, it feels like a clean solution. If thousands of reservation holders are serious, then thousands of payments equals millions of dollars. Millions of dollars equals production. Production equals cars on the road. And cars on the road equal investor confidence. It feels linear, logical, and achievable. But here's the truth. This same strategy has been tried before, and the results were painful. Not hypothetical, not theoretical, real, documented, and disastrous. Let's start with the most popular version. I'll prepay for my vehicle, but only if I can get my money back if the company fails. Sounds fair, right? The problem is brutally simple. If the money must stay refundable, it legally cannot be spent. And if the money cannot be spent, the car cannot be built. California law enforces this clearly. A refundable deposit must remain untouched. That means Aptera would legally be required to hold that money in a protected state, untouchable, unspendable, until the car is delivered. But Aptera needs that money now to buy tooling, molds, composite equipment, chassis fixtures, suspension tooling, manufacturing gear, and parts contracts. If they can't spend the deposit money, then the entire concept collapses. The money stays frozen, production stalls, and nobody gets a car. Okay, so what about the opposite idea? Fine. Make the deposit non-refundable so they can spend it. This also sounds good until you follow it to its logical conclusion. Imagine tens of thousands of people putting in $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 or more. Imagine Aptera using that money to buy equipment, tooling, and parts, which is exactly what they must do to build a factory-ready vehicle. Now imagine the company hits a financial wall. Tooling overruns, supply delays, unexpected engineering changes, or simply the brutal truth every startup eventually discovers: everything costs more and takes longer than expected. If the money is already spent and the company suddenly needs more capital, there is only one outcome. Depositors lose everything. No refund, no vehicle, nothing. Think that sounds extreme? It already happened. Years ago, an automotive startup called Elio Motors tried almost exactly this strategy. They offered a program where customers could put down large, non-refundable deposits under the promise that these payments would help push the company into production. People believed in it. Thousands contributed. And then, the company ran out of money. Production never began. The deposits were gone permanently, because they had already been spent trying to reach production. Customers didn't get refunds, they didn't get vehicles, they didn't get anything. This is the unavoidable danger when you mix non-refundable deposits with high-risk manufacturing. Once the money is spent, it becomes impossible to protect the customer and impossible for the company to undo the spending. Some people propose a different angle. Why not build them by hand? Why not weld low-volume tubular frames? Why not skip high-volume chassis tooling and just produce them slowly? It's a creative idea, but the engineering reality doesn't support it. Aptera's design is optimized for high-volume composite production, not slow custom fabrication. Switching to a tubular, hand-welded chassis would require complete re-engineering, new crash testing, structural analysis, redesigning suspension integration, hiring welders, and reworking the production process from the ground up. This is not a small adjustment, it's a full restart. Even worse, the cost per vehicle would skyrocket. The car would no longer be affordable. The business model wouldn't scale. There would be no path to profitability. It would essentially become a handcrafted exotic vehicle, nothing like the ultra-efficient, solar-powered mass-market product Aptera is designed to be. People also point to Tesla and say they made it work. But context matters. Tesla sold a high-end sports car built mostly by hand. They had major backing from established automakers. They received a massive government loan that arrived at the exact right moment. And even then, Tesla nearly died multiple times. Trying to repeat that model in today's market, with today's costs, competition, and capital climate, is almost impossible. Here's the real distinction people need to understand. A deposit must remain refundable. It cannot be used for tooling or production. An investment, however, can be spent, but carries risk. If reservation holders each invested $1,500 as actual investors, Aptera could raise tens of millions of dollars. But investors must accept the possibility of losing everything if the company fails. That's the honest trade-off. You get equity, but you also take on risk. This is how startups survive. This is how manufacturing launches. This is how early supporters actually help. But deposits cannot do what people hope they can do. They can hold your place in line, but they cannot fund the manufacturing line. There's another truth people don't always consider. Even if Aptera met its $60 million target, that might not be the final number. Manufacturing is unpredictable. Timelines shift, costs rise, suppliers change, engineering evolves. Deposits cannot fix these variables. Only committed capital, true investment, can carry a company through these uncertainties. The reason people keep suggesting bigger deposits is simple. They want Aptera to succeed. They want to feel like there's something they personally can do to push the company toward production. It comes from passion, belief, and hope. But the automotive world is rigid. Refundable funds cannot be touched. Non-refundable funds put customers at extreme risk. Custom building destroys the business model. And depending on customers for the entire funding structure of a vehicle startup has already proven to end badly. There is no workaround, no magic, no shortcut, no deposit-based miracle solution waiting to be discovered. If someone truly wants Aptera to succeed, the most realistic way to help is through legitimate investment with an understanding of the risk, or through moral support while the company secures funding the right way. Bigger deposits won't work. Refundable prepayments can't be used. Non-refundable prepayments create massive danger. And history has already shown how badly this strategy can fail. Sometimes, the simplest ideas hide the deepest pitfalls. Understanding those pitfalls is the first step toward helping Aptera reach the finish line the right way.